Hello, and welcome to Anime Audio Commentary. Today I'll be commenting on episode 4 of Outlaw Star. If you'd like to watch along, then start watching now. So last we left off, Hilda and Jean and company managed to find presumably the titular ship, the Outlaw Star, it having been sort of disguised or hidden on an asteroid very, very close to a sun. You know, it's not something you're going to stumble upon accidentally, at least not in a way where you're likely to live to tell the tale about it. So, they were also sort of pursued by Tau pirates and the McDougal brothers, who are apparently very, very dangerous mercenaries. And if that weren't enough, they've also sort of run afoul of the Catarl Empire, who are sort of known to be bellicose, just generally very dangerous aliens. And, you know, that's bad enough, but unbeknownst to them, they have sort of disgraced the commander of the ship, leading to her being demoted. So, you know, if it weren't enough to be on the bad side of the Empire, they've got someone with a definite axe to grind. So it seems like things are on the verge of getting real interesting really quickly. So we're getting right back into things with the Outlaw Star. So they found it, you know, very close to this star, but the trouble is getting to the asteroid itself, because, you know, the star represents a big gravity well, and if you're not careful, you're likely to get sucked into it and burned up into nothing. So, you know, that's just the issue of, like, getting to the asteroid where this ship is held. But that doesn't speak to anything regarding potential security measures that have been taken. You know, Hilda, this, I would say, fairly untrustworthy space pirate, you know, she knows what's going on here, but she's not exactly sharing all of her information. So, you know, were I Jean, I would be a fair bit wary of what's about to happen here. Although, now that I say that, I kind of take it all back, because she's just sort of immediately transported them over to where the Outlaw Star is docked. So Hilda's sort of reiterating here a little bit of stuff we learned from an introduction about how, you know, the grappler ships were built with pirate ingenuity and Space Force technology. So it's sort of like a nice merger of the best of both worlds. And, you know, there was a little bit about grappler ships being essentially equipped with manipulators. Essentially, that's what the grappling arms were for. But then they started to be used for ship-to-ship combat in a way that, you know, it just seems kind of silly initially, you know, ships getting into melee combat with one another, essentially. But I guess when you think about it, if the idea is that you're trying to like dock and board an enemy vessel, then, being able to grab it probably goes a long way. Not that I think there's any remarkable amount of boarding in Outlaw Star. At least not that I remember. So it seems like the Outlaw Star in particular is a special model. Hilda makes it pretty clear that she stole it. I guess that explains why the pirates don't like her, but what has yet to be explained is what the legal authorities think about this whole thing. If they've got a financial stake in the Outlaw Star, they're probably pretty miffed about having it stolen. Now this is something, the Outlaw Star has seemingly a shipboard AI, which is so far hitherto unseen. Wow, okay. So it's interesting that the AI is like self-aware but is also restrained. Huh. So I don't know. I guess I'm wondering how unique this is. Like, obviously the Outlaw Star is a pretty unique vessel in and of itself, but to have a shipboard AI like this, it seems to be pretty darn intelligent and personable in a way that, I don't know, I wouldn't think a shipboard computer would be. I mean, Hilda also seems to be capable of kind of like gaslighting it, saying like, look, no, this is the crew. Even if you don't have any memory, just, assume we're the crew going forward. Yeah, so she's just sort of saying like, look, you don't need to search or look into us, we're the crew. And like, he's just sort of taking this at face value, registering everyone as members of the crew. Ooh. So the plot's thickening a little bit. The ship is not able to launch. And, if they're on an asteroid very close to a star, that's, not good, Okay, so here we get a little bit of an inkling as to Melfina's purpose. Hilda's saying like, look, Melfina, this is all on you. You're going to be helping out here. And the computer just sort of goes along with it. Melfina doesn't know anything per se, but, what else can she really do but go along with things? So, the Outlaw Star, it could technically fly, but it only has like so many rations, so it's not really like space-worthy just yet. Oh dear. So, regardless of whether or not it's space-worthy, the pirates have shown up again, so things are about to get very interesting indeed. Because, like, I think what we're being set up for is that the Outlaw Star is a truly formidable ship, and therefore, in single combat, it could beat these pirates. But, with it not being, like, totally ready and having an inexperienced crew, things might get a little bit messy. So Hilda's, I guess, intending to buy time here. She's going out in her ship to sort of handle the pirates while the Outlaw Star gets ready to launch. And she just, like, makes it pretty clear, like, Hilda knows how to fly this thing. Or Melfina knows how to fly this thing, rather. I mean, like, she doesn't. Not consciously, but, I don't know. Everyone's sort of taking this at face value, getting ready. The computer, Gilliam, he's also like, look, we're waiting on Melfina to get ready. And I guess like, she's making it pretty clear what that means, you know. It's not clear how she knows, but she seems to have crawled into like a little tank for herself. You know, everyone else has a nice chair, but she's got something else, which, in a way, like, it really does sort of highlight how she is unusual, and the ship is also unusual, but there's a link between the two of them. So, Hilda's gonna have her work cut out for her. You know, if she intends to hold things off just long enough for the Outlaw Star to take off and start doing stuff, then, you know, she's facing at least like 10-1 odds here. Now, Melfina, this is an interesting thing that's going on here, because she's sort of interfacing with the ship. I don't know if it was, addressed before, but I'm wondering what exactly her true nature is, because, you know, she's certainly not like a natural born thing, right? Because, like, no one could just sort of interface with a ship, I don't reckon. So I guess the question remains, was she genetically engineered, or is there something else going on here? Or is she really truly organic at all? Oh dear. So, it seems like Jean and company are in for a bumpy ride. You know, records indicate that the engine was tested, but not after having been installed. Which, you know, that indicates to me that things are about to get very fun. Now, fortunately, Hilda manages seemingly to hold off all these fighters, or at least she had done. You know, some had gotten through, which I suppose they intend to board the ship. You know, that's kind of a dangerous thing for Hilda, because, you know, she's alone on her ship. If a bunch of people get inside and start poking around, you know, that's no good, because she's also the only one controlling things. Although I guess Jean and the others also have to worry about boarders. I guess the other issue with boarders is that if they start punching holes in the ship, you know, that's going to make getting out into the vacuum really difficult. I feel like it's also not a really good time for anyone to sort of get out of the ship and prevent boarders, because that's a real good way to be left behind, and this is not a hospitable environment. So Hilda's trying something dangerous here, you know, rotating the atmosphere to use its bulk as a shield. But it seems to me that the asteroid was also protecting them from the heat of the star. So if they rotate it to shift its bulk, I feel like that's a good way to get very toasty. The fortunate thing here, it seems, is that the people intending to board the Outlaw Star, they're sort of lacking tactically, to the point that Jean was able to essentially hold them off until they sort of changed their approach. Of course, none of that really matters when, if you open the docking port, like, any would-be boarders just kind of get sucked out into the void. You know? I can't imagine they survive that. Like, those little minion guys, I'm not sure what the deal is with them. I seem to recall they might not be entirely human, so, you know, they're probably doing alright, but that wizard, like, that guy's not having a good time. So, almost immediately during the startup procedure, Melfina's talking about stuff like she actually knows what's going on, which, that is interesting indeed, because it seems to be almost instinctual. Now, unfortunately for the Outlaw Star, they've kind of been cut off by the pirates. And, it seems as though the situation is such that they might be on their own. You know, they're going to have to handle things, which for Gene is not great. You know, he's inexperienced, and though he might have a powerful ship, I feel like experience counts a fair bit more. Oh dear. So Gene's prepared to just, ram the enemy ship, which, fair enough, I guess, but, yeah, I don't know. That's a good way to have a real rough collision, I imagine. Like, it doesn't look like they're wearing seatbelts at the moment. Ooh. So it seems as though Hilda's using thermonuclear shells. Or rather, not Hilda, but the McDougalls. It's interesting that they would sort of betray their previous clients. But if I had to take a guess, I'd say it's probably because they want the Outlaw Star themselves. It is interesting that nuclear weapons are seemingly a matter of course here. You know, like you just kind of use them like it's no big deal. Ooh. So the McDougalls, they're not interested in the ship in and of itself, they just want to destroy it. Which... oh, that's kind of interesting. You know, it seems like a lot of people want the ship, and seeing as how the McDougalls have been contracted for this, it seems like at least as many people want to destroy it. Yeah, so things are getting real serious. They've been shifted off course, and they're sort of drifting towards the precipice of the gravity well. I mean, the Outlaw Star might be able to escape, but at the same time, once you reach the point of no return, it's over. And I guess, speaking of points of no return, Gene has seen something rather horrific. You know, it would seem as though the McDougalls were responsible for, killing his father. So, I feel like Gene's, not necessarily going to be predisposed towards running away. You know, he's going to want to stick it to these guys. Oh dear. So it seems like that missile did it. You know, it's shunting the asteroid closer and closer to the sun, and, with it, Hilda and the Outlaw Star. So I guess the question is, how are they going to get out of this one? Now, the McDougalls are maybe making a rookie mistake here. You know, they're sort of assuming this is, all over bar the shouting, because, like, once you're caught in the gravity well, it's kind of over. But I don't know. It seems like there is a chance for escape here. The question is whether you can actually pull it off, because, we're dealing with physics here, and I want to say Hooke's law is the big important thing here, and if you don't time things correctly, if you don't use your momentum properly, it's over. So this is interesting. It's unclear whether Hilda is worried about herself, hoping that Gene and the others will save her, or whether she's more concerned about them dying. I suspect it's the latter, but seeing as how the Outlaw Star is basically torn its way out of the asteroid with the grappler arms, they're kind of okay, I reckon they're probably doing the best out of the three ships. Alright, so the Outlaw Star has proved immediately capable to just sort of, getting out of the gravity well with, far more ease than everyone else. Unfortunately, the Tau Pirates have decided this means it's now time to fight. And, that's not wise, you know, you guys aren't safe yet. I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up getting hurled into the sun due to their own hubris. So it seems like Jean's, something of a natural, you know? Like, that was one clash, essentially, but he managed to fend off the pirate ship. Oh, dear. So, this isn't good for Hilda. You know, the idea was that the Outlaw Star would grab her and sort of, rescue her, but having been hit by that glancing blow, it seems like it might be over. You know, she's saying, like, look, you gotta save us, but, I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of a no-win scenario. Oh dear. It seems like Hilda might be sacrificing herself after all. She's going out onto the wire connecting the pirate ship to the Outlaw Star in a spacesuit, which, you know, above a star as she is, like, that's real dangerous. And the big issue here is that the enemy pirate ship is essentially dragging them down towards the star, so if something isn't done, then everyone's going to burn. And it seems like this is almost counterintuitive from the perspective of the pirates. You know, they wouldn't want to destroy the ship and kill themselves in the process, but, well, I guess it's all kind of moot now. Man, it's kind of unfortunate. Hilda didn't even make, you know, the big sacrifice play. She was trying to save herself and fight off the pirates, but ultimately it proved futile. And I guess, like, the pirates, they've got to feel pretty stupid themselves having caused this. I guess it's nice that as a final gesture, Hilda's dragging down the sorceress with her. You know. Wow. That's something to have, like a fake tooth with an explosive charge. I guess, you know, if you want to go out on your own terms, that's the way to do it, but, man. I guess it is a nice final gesture that, like, look, you know, you're getting away with the ship, I'll make sure you get away clean. But it's got to be a bit of a bummer for everyone involved, not least of all Jean. So I guess the question is, now that they have this ship, what now? You know, Jean is nominally the captain, but Hilda was the one who knew what was going on first. Well, I guess that's it for now. I guess we'll see what Jean decides to do next. Alright, well that's it for this episode. If you've enjoyed it, then by all means, tune in for the next one. See you, Space Cowboy.